NFLMAX Radio, broadcasting live tonight, Wednesday, October 10th. Week 5 is in the books behind us as the season continues on and the Dynasty stock market rising and falling for players. We're going to take a look at some long-term options for your teams and some buys and sells in Dynasty. So we're back, taking over your YouTube airways tonight. And as always, Ewok Juggernaut's here with the hot pineapples. Nick, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just ready to knock out a good show. Put one together for you guys. We got some fun players to talk about, and it's going to be fun, so let's roll.
Let's roll. We're going to make it extra hot tonight because Nick's got a brand new microphone.
And hopefully it's working this week.
Hopefully. So the big news for this week has to be the New York Odell Beckham Juniors, not the New York Giants, the New York OBJs, who took the field this Sunday against the Panthers. And the number one scoring wide receiver for week 5, Odell Beckham Jr., put on a show. And OBJ letting the world know you don't need anyone else on the field but OBJ. 35 points in a PPR. Odell Beckham Jr., he played quarterback, throwing a touchdown to Saquon Barkley. He played wide receiver, doing his Odell Beckham things. And he even played a little special teams, but we won't talk about the fumble on the kick return in that game. So who needs the other 10 players when you're Odell Beckham Jr.? Basically put the team on his back and got the win for the Giants on Sunday.
Say what?
In an 11-on-1 matchup, Odell Beckham Jr. is revolutionizing the way we play football. The selfless.
I don't get 20 targets like some other receivers.
Humble.
All the top receivers get the ball the way that they, should.
And incredibly mature. Odell Beckham Jr. taught us all a valuable lesson. And that is, it's all about Odell Beckham Jr. setting a great example for his teammates this past week and showing the world what a class act he truly is. In the ultimate team sport, the game we all love, apparently, you don't need 11 players on the field. You just need Odell Beckham Jr. And he alone can help you get a win, just like he did on Sunday for the Giants.
What you talking about? What you talking about? What you talking about, Willis?
As the Giants beat the Panthers on Sunday.
Except he didn't.
Except he didn't. If that was the case, we'd be having a whole different discussion. But the Giants lost on Sunday to the Panthers. After all of that, 35 points, a passing touchdown, receiving touchdown, 131 yards, 14 targets, 8 receptions, a beast of a performance, put on a show, 35 PPR points, and the Giants lost the game on Sunday to the Panthers. And long-term dynasty, we have to take a look at them. OBJ letting us know with his interview on ESPN where his head's at. And kudos to Josina Anderson for asking the $65 million question, which was,
are you truly happy in New York?
Are you truly happy in New York? And Beckham laughs and shrugs his shoulders and says,
It's a tough question.
That's a tough question. Now, meanwhile, Lil Wayne is sitting to the left of him and covers his face, knowing what a horrible answer that was for the question. I mean, you talk about biting the hand that feeds you. The Giants made an incredible financial sacrifice and a huge investment in OBJ. And that's what he says about the team. And then he went on to say, I love seeing the sunshine and being in LA, but this is where I'll be at. And then, rambled about butterflies or not having butterflies, and it's time for him to get out of the cage. And that's going to be a problem if he's being held back from being out of the cage. Obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. is a malcontent. And yes, he's 25 years old in the prime of his career. And for dynasty purposes, obviously, he's a top 5 wide receiver, top 3 wide receiver, arguably. But we have to look at the long-term prognosis here for Odell Beckham Jr. And I feel like we've been down this road before with Randy Moss. And Randy Moss, like OBJ, was the best in the biz at his position. And it was when he was 27 years of age when he played his last game in Minnesota. And Minnesota just got tired of him. And they got rid of him. And I can't help but wonder, because of the immaturity, the temperament of OBJ, what are the Giants going to do long-term with Beckham? And are we going to see him eventually on another team? So, Nick, what do you think? Long-term prognosis, what are you doing here with Beckham?
I mean, as far as a dynasty standpoint goes, I mean, it's hard not to trust him. I mean, just from a production standpoint, but it kind of, goes with the question of, do you trust the head case? So like even a guy, which I don't want to downplay it and make it sound like it wasn't awful, but people were all over this when Mixon was coming out, right? Or all over it with Josh Gordon. But sometimes players get ignored. So, for instance, some of the stuff that Dalvin Cook did when he was in college, nobody talked about, but some of the stuff he did was awful off the field as well. And so it's like we like to pick and choose who, we account for these issues. This is something that has to be a big concern for people who do own stock in Odell Beckham. I'm not sure he's stable. Like from an actual mental standpoint and everything that came out over the summer with the photos and, he doesn't seem like he is taking this opportunity very seriously. And, he's not the right kind of guy like a Michael Thomas or a Christian Kirk, like these guys that you hear come out and they go to work every day. He doesn't seem like he's that kind of guy. He seems, obviously he's all about himself, but he just seems like he's not stable in the head. Mm-hmm. And even, watching him on the sideline with his helmet and screaming, and there's a different type of passion that comes with caring about the game. Something like Dez Bryant. When you see Dez Bryant yelling on the sideline, I truly believe he's maybe not 100% stable either, but I truly believe his outbursts come from his passion for the game. I don't see that with Odell. I see that being his passion for himself and his lack of targets or his lack of production because they aren't targeting him specifically. With Dez, sometimes, he wanted the ball, but he wanted the ball because he wanted the team to be successful. It was only during stalled drives that you would see Dez on the sideline ranting. You wouldn't see him ranting if they were being successful. Yeah, and sure. I just think with Odell, you've seen him get frustrated and seen him rant even when the team is successful. I just don't trust his character and the type of guy he is from everything that you see. And for me, that is a bit concerning for his stock if I'm a holder.
Yeah, and I use the word malcontent, with OBJ. And, the same goes for Dez Bryant. He was a malcontent. He was not happy with, being there when we often saw him on the sidelines ranting and raving. But the difference is, he's 30 years old now and unemployed. Obviously, Beckham is 25 in the prime of his career. And also, Terrell Owens was another one, but we saw him leave San Francisco at the age of 30. Moss is the closest one in age because he was 27 when he left. And, OBJ is 25. So, if you have OBJ stock, obviously you're fine for now, but, looking down the road and, he said the truth too. Like he talked about Eli. Eli's not a great quarterback. The days of spelling elite with Eli are long gone. So, I would, if I had OBJ stock, I would be worried and concerned about him going to another team with, subpar quarterback play, like we saw Randy Moss in Oakland. And those are some horrible years for Randy Moss in Oakland. But, obviously if I have him, I'm going to try to sell him and diversify my portfolio. If I'm a contender, I'm just going to ride the wave. But if I'm rebuilding, I would cash out. Obviously, you cash out high. It's OBJ. But, it's a red flag and it's a concern for me long term. So staying at the wide receiver position, we can move on. And let's talk about Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay has become the alpha dog in Detroit. 35% target share and led the team with 9 targets on Sunday, had a touchdown, and he even had a 50-yard touchdown called back. So pulling up his stats here, 9 targets, 4 receptions, 98 yards and a touch, and had a 50-yarder called back. Can you imagine the day he would have had if there wasn't a penalty on the offensive side of the ball? So Kenny Golladay, the alpha dog in Detroit. Thoughts on him? You want to talk about Kenny?
Yeah, I mean, his development has been incredible. His catch radius is insane. You see it almost weekly with him making a grab that you're like, wow, that shouldn't be humanly possible. He's a freak, and he's called Little Tron for a reason. So, I mean, dude can ball. And I know you wanted to say something about that. I'm sure, being a huge Calvin Johnson fan.
Yeah, they're actually calling him Babytron, which is pretty cool.
Babytron.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Little Tron, Babytron. So he's a freak of nature. And for me, it all comes back to, I never really looked at Golden Tate as a number one. So I never really looked at Golden Tate as someone who was a number one receiver in the NFL. And nor did I look at Marvin Jones Jr. as someone who was a number one in the NFL. And so you're looking at 2 guys who probably better profile as 2s in an offense, but functioned decent as 1s. And then you had 2 of those guys who could function decent as 1s to put together a really nice receiving core there in Detroit for Stafford. Then you add in Golladay, someone who actually profiles as an X receiver, and you have a really, really nice stable of pass catchers. I think it's a bright future for Stafford. It's a bright future for Detroit, as long as they can let Kerryon take over. That offense has a lot of promise. I really like Kenny Golladay. I always thought Marvin Jones Jr. was a little underrated. People looked at him as a strict wide receiver 2-3 in fantasy. He was a wide receiver 1-2 border for the past couple of years. He's a solid producer in fantasy. Golden Tate is the same thing, and they're probably a wide receiver 1-2 fringe in actual football too, both of those guys. So to get in a guy like Golladay who can really play as a wide receiver 1, he's got the look of and the makings of it. He's taking the right steps in that direction. It's going to be exciting to watch Detroit.
Absolutely. And as a Detroit Lions fan, I'm very excited about Kenny Golladay. And, I wasn't that high on him as a prospect, but as a 3rd-round pick, prototypically sized, like you said, 6'4", he's going to slide right in. And
he's that day 2 wide receiver. We talk about it all the time. You've got to get those guys that are pedigreed, right? So day 2 wide receiver, that's pedigree. So you should be buying into that all the time. And rookie drafts, he was going, 3rd round. People were getting him in the 3rd round, 4th round in rookie drafts. Like, if you're going to take a shot on someone in the 3rd or 4th round who's likely not going to be on your roster, you take a shot on a pedigreed wide receiver like Kenny Golladay. When it hits, it can be a huge win for you.
So just scrolling down the top wide receiver performances, obviously Devontae Adams doing his thing, Antonio Brown doing his thing. And then we get to Robbie Anderson, who against the Broncos, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 123 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And he had a day, looking very Deshaun Jackson-esque. On his first touchdown, got separation and burnt Bradley Roby for that touchdown. I mean, the separation was like a mile long. And then on the second touchdown, he pretty much outboxed him again for that second touchdown. So, 5 targets, 3 receptions, hell of a day for Robbie Anderson. And, you got to be excited about this guy. So thoughts on Robbie Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been a huge Robbie Anderson fan for the past couple of years. Even the last 2 years, I was taking him late in drafts, and it really paid off in the, second half of the season. I don't know. I'm watching him this year, and I just don't see the same player. He looked good last week, but when you think about his target share, it was only, he had 4 total targets?
Yeah,
Three or four.
You had 5, yeah.
Yeah, 5 total targets. So I just don't see enough of a target share there that's going to warrant me being comfortable putting him in a lineup. You're right. It kind of has the feel of a Deshaun Jackson in the sense that, like, you can probably play him as your flex, and when he hits, it's going to be great, but his weekly floor is like nothing. So it's all, up to what you subscribe to as a manager of your lineup. And, a lot of people struggle with in-season stuff, and I do like to bake in the upside, but you've got to know, like, you want a guy with a little bit of a floor ceiling combination. Robbie Anderson is not that. He has a floor of nothing, and his ceiling is very, very high. His ceiling is what you just saw this week, 130 plus yards on 2 long bombs that results in touchdowns. But you're not getting the floor because you're not getting the volume.
Would you, in comparison to other similar style wide receivers, Kenny Stills, Deshaun Jackson, we mentioned, would you rank him above those guys?
No, I would not rank him above Stills. Stills gets a little bit more of a volume share, especially because there's no other weapons there in Miami, and I think Tannehill is an underrated quarterback. I would be putting Stills above him. I would be putting Robbie Anderson above Deshaun Jackson only because of Deshaun Jackson's age. What Deshaun Jackson can do, he's still dynamic, and I really like him opposite of Mike Evans because Evans commands a double team. It's kind of like Fuller and Hopkins. If you're going to command a double team and you've got a guy with elite separation skills like Fuller and Deshaun, you take those guys, but Deshaun is nothing more than a bridge player at this point.
Yeah. For me, I would rather have Robbie Anderson over Stills just because of the situation. I like the quarterback better, and I was very impressed with Robbie Anderson, but we'll see. Like I said, Deshaun Jackson light. Let's go to Seattle, and let's talk about Tyler Lockett, who this week had 5 targets, 3 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. And let's face it, Seattle stinks. And the game script for them every week is going to be good for wide receivers. But there seems to be some kind of magic with Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett. And if Doug Baldwin is going to be double covered or facing elite cornerbacks, Lockett is going to be free to do his thing. And when Wilson scrambles and you're playing, backyard football and the coverage breaks down, and it's going to be Lockett that's going to be catching those deep bombs. And, he didn't see a ton of targets. He only had 5. But, right now, Tyler Lockett's a wide receiver 1 in football. And if you get kick return points in your league, it makes him just absolutely, phenomenal for this year. So Tyler Lockett, let's touch on him for a little bit long-term.
Yeah, long-term is a little bit more of a cloudy situation. But like you're saying, for this year, you go back to the thought of a guy like Fuller or a guy like Deshaun Jackson, where, if your guy is going to be doubled on the outside or command the elite cornerback like Doug Baldwin will, I don't think he's an extreme talent, but he does command that kind of attention because of the connection that he has with Russell Wilson. Tyler Lockett is probably, doesn't have the separation skills of Deshaun Jackson or Will Fuller, but he's got good enough separation skills. And the beautiful thing about Russell Wilson is he extends plays. He's probably one of the better quarterbacks, not one of. He probably is the top 2, along with Aaron Rodgers, at extending plays with his legs, making something happen. And if he's going to keep doing that and Doug Baldwin's going to draw and tilt coverage, Tyler Lockett's in for a big year. As far as long-term prognosis, I don't know if I see it sticking at this level. I think he'll be fine. He's definitely someone who is still probably underrated in the community. I would actually be interested to see what he's going for on DLF in recent trades, because just by, my take, I feel like he's not talked about enough. Like you said, he's a wide receiver 1 right now in fantasy, but it seems like everyone's counting him as a 1-year type of player and not looking at the long term. I'm going to subscribe to the fact that I don't know that he's got the capability to sustain what he's doing right now, but I think he's definitely has longer term value. And he was someone that I was targeting, in startup drafts, because I think he's got a 2 to 3 year window, which in Dynasty, to be honest, when I construct my rosters, I'm playing by a 2 or 3 year window. I'm trying to give myself a little bit of a runway, but still be competitive. So,
all right, let's take a look at it. Trade Finder, Tyler Lockett for a 2019 second round pick.
I'm taking Lockett.
Yeah, I'm taking Lockett too. And I've got Lockett everywhere in all my leagues. Tyler Lockett and Philip Lindsay for Jarvis Landry.
Oh, I'm going to take the upgrade at receiver there. I'm going to go Jarvis just because of his market share there in Cleveland, especially with a guy like Baker. I'm going to take the upgrade, but it's only because I'm not a Lindsay believer.
Yeah, I'm going the other way on this one. I love Philip Lindsay. That's a great, I'll take that side any day. Tyler Lockett, Zach Ertz for Marvin Jones, Hunter Henry, your boy, 2019 second.
Oh, I'm going to take the second plus Henry and Jones all day. I'll take that. So
that's close. That's tough for me right there. That's a tough call.
Yeah, and see, this is what I'm talking about. Though is like when you look at these deals, like the market is all over the place right now on Tyler Lockett. So it seems like some people value him highly, some people value him as like in that trade he was one of the featured pieces, and some people are just willing to ship him for a second. So the lesson here, the actionable reason is shop around, see if you can get him for a second round pick. If you can give a 2019 second round pick, regardless of early or late, I think that's worth it for a guy like Lockett.
I could probably talk myself into that Lockett side on this deal and say Marvin Jones is no longer the lead dog in Detroit. We just talked about Kenny Golladay. Zach Ertz over Hunter Henry, I'll take. And a 2019 second. I could talk myself into the Lockett side on that.
Yeah, you could talk yourself into it. Definitely.
It's definitely close.
It's a pretty fair trade, but I think I would go with the proven commodity in Marvin at the wide receiver position and take my chance on the upside with Hunter Henry plus the pick.
Yep. All right, let's move on here, wide receiver. Let's go to Denver and talk about one of my guys. Man, Cortland Sutton. This past week, 6 targets, 2 receptions, and only 18 yards, but he scored a touchdown. And here's the thing with Cortland Sutton. In previous podcasts, we talked about it already. He was my number 1 rookie wide receiver for this year. But the interesting stat here is he is out-snapping Demaryius Thomas major. And this week, he out-snapped him 62-47. And on the season, 280 to 264. And that tells a big story. And also had 5 end zone targets this week. And he's got 7 on the season. So they're chucking him the ball in the end zone. He's out snapping Demaryius Thomas. And if they only had a quarterback to throw him the ball, maybe next year, Case Keenum's not doing it for me. But Cortland Sutton is rising very, very fast. And Demaryius Thomas is looking ancient right now. Thoughts on Cortland Sutton?
No, yeah, I mentioned it. I think it was 2 pods back on Demaryius Thomas. He's done. I mean, he is a shell of himself. And you can look at this box score today and not watch the game and fool yourself and think he had like 108 yards or something on 5 receptions, if I'm recalling that number right off the top of my head. But like 56 of them came in like one long garbage time. He's got nothing. I mean, he can't even if you watch him go up for that garbage time touchdown, he couldn't high point the ball whatsoever. And what you hear about Cortland Sutton is, and the thing that made him so attractive is his physical attributes and his catch radius are, I mean, incredible. The guy the flexibility he has to turn around and try to catch passes behind his back. It's incredible, the flexibility and the radius that he brings. And I'm glad that he got 5 red zone targets because he can be an absolute monster down there. You can literally put the ball wherever you need to put it, and he can go get it. And that's the beautiful thing about guys like that with the flexibility that make them so valuable. And wide receiver ones is in the red zone, you can put the ball high and out and he can go get it. You can put it low and out to the pylon and he can go get it. You can even fit it behind a corner and he can go get it. His catch radius is incredible, and he's going to be really fun to watch develop. I'm glad they're giving him the opportunity. It's time. But like you were saying, the quarterback is going to limit him for now, but I really hope they give Chad Kelly a shot this year.
Oh yeah. Cecil Lammy's always talking about him. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And you talked about his radius, a 10.27 score in his radius.
Ridiculous.
Big hands, 9 3/4 hands, 32 3/8 arm length, and top 5 percentile 3-cone, which is insane. 6.57 and a 10.68 agility. I mean, Cortland Sutton for me was not even close. Best rookie wide receiver this year, but yeah, get Denver a quarterback, please, John Elway. Let's move on to another rookie who played on Monday Night Football and had a pretty big night, and redraft is going crazy for this guy right now. But Traquan Smith, 3 targets, had 3 receptions, 111 yards and 2 touchdowns, and caught the big one from Drew Brees. And Traquan Smith, we talked about him in the offseason, and I know they got Cameron Meredith there, but Michael Thomas needs a compliment wide receiver, and they drafted this kid, to be that guy. Just pulling up his stats here, 3rd round pick, 6'2", and checks a lot of boxes for me. And I know Meredith played on Sunday, but he has an injury history. But long term, this guy is going to play opposite Michael Thomas. So thoughts on his performance this week?
I love him, and I'm smiling ear to ear because he actually won me some money last night. A shout out to my buddy Teddy Accardi. We smashed the showdown slate together. We're sitting there texting each other, and I'm like, dude, how do you not play Traquan? Because he's a huge Saints fan. He's like, dude, you can't not play him. Like, we both had him locked button. Like, he was playing. The beautiful thing about Traquan Smith is he has the same abilities, where he just slid into that Ted Ginn role, and he literally played Ted Ginn, and he played him perfectly. You didn't lose a step. I mean, he was that exact role. And so, I mean, Ted Ginn in that Saints offense has been, lethal the past couple years. So if you get a young guy in there who doesn't miss a beat and can play that role, that's a no-brainer for us. That was a no-brainer in Showdown. We were sitting there like, I was drooling over it. I was like, I wanted to play him as my captain so bad to get the 1.5, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. And that right there was actually the difference between me, building a lineup where I would have come in first place in the Showdown, because I hit on everyone else. But man, Traquan, he was a beast last night. I snatched him up this year. He was one of my target players. And I said to myself, I always kind of had the guys where, this year, if I was hitting the 2nd round and he was still there, I was taking James Washington, whether it was at 201, 206. In the 2nd round, James Washington was my guy. In the 3rd, Traquan Smith was my guy. So the only way to beat me to him was to be picking ahead of me in the 3rd round, or you took him in the 2nd, because he was my target player. As soon as I hit the 3rd round, if he was there, that's who I was taking.
Yep. And I'm looking at Trade Finder here, and guys like Michael Gallup were going ahead of him. And
yeah, it's crazy.
Here's a trade right here. Michael Gallup for Traquan Smith in a 2nd. I mean, are you kidding me? It's not even close.
No.
Traquan and Juju for Fournette and Boyd.
Wow, that's an interesting deal.
Very interesting. Traquan in a 2nd for James White.
Ugh. I love White, but that's so specific. Like, his role is so specific, and he gets optimized touches, but that's just like, that's a way to lose in Dynasty, is taking an ancillary piece.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to trade a guy like Traquan Smith and a draft asset, and a decent draft asset, you've got to get back a guy who's seeing a significant snapshot. That's bad process right there.
I won't even ask you for your comment on Traquan or Chris Carson. We'll just move on. Traquan for a 2nd, straight up.
No, I'm keeping Traquan.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, Traquan.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
the Saints have a history of rookie wide receivers being successful. So
and not only that, but we talked about day 2 wide receiver being pedigreed. He's third round pick. Like, he's got the size, 6'2". I mean, in that offense, yeah, sign me up. I don't care if Drew Brees isn't there. The thing that people are looking past in the Saints offense in terms of dynasty assets is these guys are now insulated. Traquan Smith is now one of the most insulated wide receivers because not only does he have a coach who has shown rational coaching and can scheme offensive production, but he has a legitimate backup quarterback in Bridgewater for a seamless transition. So I'm super excited about that Saints offense. Where I have Michael Thomas and Traquan, I am like stoked.
Yeah. Yeah, I got Traquan all over the place too. So yeah, let's move on. Wide receiver. A lot of duds this week. Julio still hasn't scored a touchdown. Marvin Jones, we talked about him with Galladay. Your boy Corey Davis, concerned about that passing attack. But let's talk about Amari Cooper. And one target on Sunday, which is mind-blowing. I know he's facing, a mix of Casey Hayward and, Trevor Williams, but Amari Cooper, one target. I mean, I do not want to go on the Amari Cooper ride anymore. I'm so done with Amari Cooper. I'm tired of talking about him, but we got to talk about him because apparently everybody else still thinks he's wide receiver gold. But Amari Cooper, thoughts on him? What's going on here?
It's been a weird ride with Cooper, but I will go on the record right now saying this is the perfect kind of buy window because, I mean, people are literally like, they're done with him. They're like you, and if you own a share, you're so tired of putting him in your lineup and watching him put up this dud of a week. And I subscribe to the floor ceiling combo. And right now the reason that I thought he was such a safe profile was because he was going to have the volume, especially with Crabtree gone. It hasn't happened. Jordy Nelson's been sucking up the targets. It's crazy.
He doesn't even look the same. And I know he's heavier. He gained 20, 25 pounds, whatever it was. He doesn't look the same like he looked in college.
I know. He looks so much less explosive and the separation is like minimal. He's not winning. He's not winning on his routes. He's not technical whatsoever. He's just trying to bully people around with his weight and it's not working for him.
Yeah. At some point you've got to, make a move. I mean, for me, over the summer, I wanted out.
Yeah, but what kind of move are you going to make at this point?
I mean, ask the Derrick Henry owners what they want to do, or ask the Josh Gordon owners. Listen, he had a few games here and there where he blew up for 40-something points, 3 touchdowns, and over 100 yards. But it's totally inconsistent. And, it's not like he put together a whole season like Gordon did with 1,600 yards. It's just games here and there where he flashes.
But that's why he's the perfect buy candidate is because people like the effect that a guy like Amari Cooper has because you start him every week. When he puts up a 0, you get so angry that you're literally almost willing to ship him off for nothing. If he was on your bench and put up a 0, you wouldn't really care. You would look at his profile. So let's say he wasn't an auto start for you weekly, right? If he was on your bench, would you really care? No, he's a first-round pick. He's pedigreed, and his profile plays the safe. So you would be keeping him. You would hold in hopes that he hits. Well, you're only this mad because he's in your starting lineup.
Yeah, and if you're getting him at a discount, fine, I'm buying. But that the Dynasty community is still high on him, and I'm pulling up trades right now.
I'm not sure that people are anymore, though. That's the thing is like he's starting to come into that era where like he's achievable for a minimal cost. Okay, let's hear some of them. I'm interested.
Let's take a look at it. Amari Cooper for a 2019 first and a 2019 second. I mean, depending on what team you're trading with, if it's a top half first round pick, obviously I'm selling Cooper for a top half first round pick, but I don't really want to buy Cooper for a first round pick and a second round pick. I don't know. What do you think? Would you buy?
I mean, so my thought process is if you're in the back half of the first round, right? Like if you're a contender, yes, I'm spending a back half of the first round, first and second, in a class that I don't think is going to be that great. Because as a contender, if he does end up hitting, you're just making your team that much stronger. Those are the kinds of guys that, as a contender, I'm willing to take a risk on with a first or a second round pick. Absolutely. If I'm in the top half of the first round, I agree with you. If I'm a rebuilding team, probably not looking that direction.
Okay. What about, an old veteran, but still one of the best in the biz, Antonio Brown? Amari Cooper and Alshon Jeffrey for Antonio Brown. I mean,
no, I'm holding Brown.
Yeah, I'm keeping Brown.
Yeah, I'm keeping Brown.
Amari Cooper for a first round pick straight up.
Depends. It really is. So like we're saying, every league it depends. What state are you in? Like, I'm buying Cooper now if I can get him at a nice price. Like, I'm not paying market value for Amari Cooper because there's no guarantee. Like I said, you're not buying a floor ceiling combination. So you just have to be careful to make sure that's not bad process. But if I'm a back half of the first round because I'm a contender, like I'm talking top 4 team, I'm taking a shot at Amari Cooper because that's how you not only win a league, it's how you dominate a league and build a dynasty. You take shots on pedigreed wide receivers, and Amari Cooper is pedigreed. He's had success in the past. His profile plays to him being a hit. So I'm going to take that chance. And if he hits, I'm just going to, again, bully people.
Yeah. I don't think, that's what he would go for realistically. I mean, I don't like Cooper, and I would still take him over a bottom, 10, 11, 12 pick in the first round.
Yeah, but if you can get him, like if someone's angry and you can get him at that point, he's a buy for me, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, in the NFLMAX league, he was traded over the summer, and he went for, 2 first round picks? So,
yeah.
I'll take 2 first round picks and run for Amari Cooper right now. It's what you do with those picks. It's a whole different story. So let's move on here. Wide receiver. Like we said, we finished out here. But before we move on from wide receiver, we got to talk about my boy, Josh Gordon, who caught the 500th touchdown from Tom Brady. It was incredible. Tom Brady back to pass, scrambling back there, had all day to throw the ball. The protection is unbelievable. Tom Brady threw the ball in double coverage, and Gordon just jumped up, split the coverage, jumped up, grabbed it, and scored a touchdown. I mean, man, I just can't wait for this to start happening every week. And they put Gordon next to Brady in the locker room. They're side by side in the locker room. And, that was a big catch for Gordon and for the trust of Brady. And it's going to start building. And, I'm looking at Gordon here in the second half of the season for him to really take over in New England. And I know Edelman's back. He's going to play slot role. He's going to do his thing. But, big catch for Gordon. And, hopefully moving forward here, we're going to see it happen. What do you think about that catch?
It's crazy. Like, just to think about the Patriots depth chart over the first 5 weeks of the season, they went from literally 0 weapons, and now they turn around. They've got Julian Edelman, Josh Gordon, Chris Hogan, Cordero Patterson, and Philip Dorsett sitting on their depth chart. They are like loaded all of a sudden. It's wild. It's wild. And the only thing I will say about Josh Gordon is you can't expect those kinds of plays every week from him yet, because he's only in the 20 to 30% range of snap count. So they're still very much limiting what he does. It's we talked about when he was first traded, a very difficult offense to pick up. So you can't expect him to just jump right in there and get, 50+% of the snaps. But once he starts to get 50+% of the snaps, he's someone who you can put in a starting lineup with confidence. But it's not until then that I'm going to start him and feel confident about the numbers. Yeah.
He's a flex play right now. I had the decision to make. It was either Tywan Taylor or Josh Gordon. And of course, I'm rolling with my guy, Josh Gordon.
Of course. Well, that's a no-brainer because Taylor's not that good.
Well, Taylor is good, but they don't want to throw the ball in Tennessee. Let's move on to running back right now. And let's talk about it. James Conner silencing the doubters this week, and the number 1 scoring running back for week 5 with 34 points in a PPR, 21 carries, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns, and caught 4 receptions for 75 yards. And, you know, you had a couple games there where, you know, I was getting worried. But James Conner, the you know, the future running back for Pittsburgh, is here to play right now. And if Bell does get traded over the next coming weeks, I mean, you know, you got to be worried if he's going to split carries with Bell this year. But if Bell does get traded, and it's the James Conner show, wheels up James Conner from here on out. Thoughts about Conner?
Oh yeah, I mean, I said it last week. I told you I'm riding the wave. I didn't believe that 9-point performance that we saw last week was what he actually was as a running back. I said I think there's better days ahead for him, and sure enough, this is the type of usage that I want to see for him. This is the type of usage that I expected for him, and this is the type of usage that I foresee coming in the future weeks. Their offense was so one-dimensional, and to be honest, Roethlisberger has not been playing well. He's been in a little bit of a funk. He's been off rhythm. He even said, I'm not just off rhythm with Antonio Brown. I'm off rhythm with everybody. And he's just been struggling. He's been going through a little bit of time. So to give the ball to James Conner just to take some pressure off of him, that's what needs to be done. And I almost expect those 4 receptions a game. Like, I feel like that should be a minimum for him out of the backfield, because he really can be productive from a pass-catching role out of the backfield. I love James Conner. I like what I saw from him this week. Makes me super excited. You know, again, as a guy who got James Conner in the 3rd and 4th round of rookie drafts and was getting him so late in startups, I'm riding the wave. James Conner will forever be a pineapple in every league that he's in, and I'll go down with that ship, because there's nothing that I could trade him for that returns as much value as being able to beat up on my opponents and have a surefire running back 1 to pair with my stud running backs that I actually took at the top of drafts with that expectation.
And the great thing about Conner too is, yeah, he's very expensive right now to buy, and if you sell, you can cash big time. But it's only going to get better for Conner. I mean, even this year, like if Bell gets traded soon, now Conner's worth even more. And then you fast forward to the offseason, and Conner in 2019, Conner's worth even more than he is now. So
yeah, and that's the thing is, like, yeah, the value's only going up. Like, once Bell is gone and out of the way, imagine what the market for Conner is going to be when he's declared like the guy. There's no one else there. Like, Stephen Ridley is not competition. So it's, you know, and they are going to bring somebody in, but it's probably going to be a 4th round running back. I would be shocked if they didn't draft someone in the 4th or 5th round and call them his backup. Like, I think James Conner is the guy that they're going for. He's pedigreed with the 3rd round grade, or the 2nd round, sorry. And he's a guy that they really, really like. And I like him too. I think he's a great running back. He's going to be successful.
Yeah, they love him. He's a hometown kid.
And I don't even care if he goes on the bench this year. I got, you know, what does a team look like that has had James Conner in the starting lineup? You're probably at least, you know, going into this week, you were probably 2-2. So now you come out probably 3-2.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, he's right up there with guys that we don't even have to talk about anymore. I mean, we don't have to talk about James Conner anymore.
No, we don't. I mean, it's
Gurley. We don't have to talk about Gurley. We know who Gurley is. Saquon Barkley. I'm just going down the list. Conner, Gurley, Barkley. You know, this will probably be the last time we talk about Conner until Bell gets traded, or, you know, he's scoring 50 points again. Okay, so let's continue on here at running back, and let's talk about TJ Yeldon. 10 carries on Sunday, and I'm pulling up his stats here. Against the Chiefs, 10 carries for 53 yards and 11 targets, 8 receptions, 69 yards, and a receiving touchdown. And TJ Yeldon is letting us all know that he is capable of being a 3-down back. And what a difference from a few years ago. TJ Yeldon also had 3 end zone targets in the game. So I know, you know, Tuesday they signed Jamal Charles, obviously for, you know, for depth at the position. And we don't know really how serious this Fournette injury is. Obviously they say he's coming back. We don't know when. But for now, TJ Yeldon doing his thing. And fast forward to 2019, you know, if this guy is a free agent on a new team, look out. So thoughts on TJ Yeldon?
Yeah, this is someone I really liked coming into the offseason. He was definitely on my target list. I keep going back to my startups, but there's such a good thing to draw from because it really tells you, gives you a clear picture of who you really liked. And Yeldon was someone that I got in like over 75% of my leagues. He was someone that I was heavily targeting. I saw his profile playing to a 3-down back. He's a super good receiver. And I think he's a guy who can run between the tackles. I don't think he's ever going to light the world on fire between the tackles as the main guy, but he's always going to have that pass catching role. So where even the next place that he goes, he's going to go to a place where he can excel in the passing game. So he has a solid floor, especially in PPR. And he was someone that I was definitely willing to invest in. I'm still willing to invest in, depending on the price. Obviously people are going to want an arm and a leg, but once Fournette comes back and can kind of log some games in there, if you can go back and get Yeldon, he's one snap away. And as we see, Fournette is not a sure bet to go down, but he's about as sure as it gets to be dinged up. He was this way in LSU. He was this way through last year in his first year of his NFL career. He is always dinged up. And to get a guy with the potential of TJ Yeldon one snap away for dirt cheap, that's a poker chip that I'm playing every time. And I did it this offseason and it's paying off. James Conner, TJ, it's crazy. Like the way that I constructed my rosters, I just pounded wide receiver up front and then I hit all of these running backs in the middle rounds. Yep. And now this week, my 3 starting running backs were James Conner, TJ Yeldon, and Alfred Blue. And I felt great about it. I felt great about all 3 of them.
0 running back. We're in a bunch of leagues together and we had very similar strategies, pounding wide receiver early and getting guys like that. And even, the Tevin Coleman's of the world, getting them later too. Yeah, I'm a big fan of TJ Yeldon. I'm really excited to watch him play. And it's a totally different TJ Yeldon than we saw a few years ago. And it reminds me of the TJ Yeldon we saw in college. That's the guy. This is the guy that we're watching now that we saw in college. I don't know where he was his first few years in Jacksonville, but he's here to play now, apparently.
I used to love watching Yeldon at Alabama. He was so much fun to watch.
He was. His highlight reels were amazing. Okay, so let's move on. Staying at running back. Okay, let's go to Denver. Okay. Let's talk about a couple guys here. And 2 running backs in Denver we're both going to disagree on. But for me, Phillip Lindsay is outperforming Royce Freeman, and it's not even close. Quick feet. He's got juice. When you watch him, he looks like such a better running back than Royce Freeman. And when I watch Freeman, I'm so disappointed because I loved him in college at Oregon, but he looks like a plotter. I'm not impressed. He's dropping passes on Sunday. Here's the stat line. Royce Freeman, 5 carries, 31 yards. Meh. Phillip Lindsay, 12 carries, 61 yards. So obviously Denver loves him. They've shown that with the carries and the snaps. And, I'm scared as a Royce Freeman owner. I've got him in a few leagues and I'm looking to sell because Phillip Lindsay is not going away. And listen, I'm not saying Phillip Lindsay is going to be a 20 carry a game running back. That's not who he is. We all know that. But he's dangerous because he's going to take snaps away from Freeman. And obviously he's going to be there on 3rd down in the receiving games. And like I said, he's not going anywhere because they're both rookies. So long-term prognosis, Royce Freeman, Phillip Lindsay is going to be a pain in Royce Freeman's butt. So I love Phillip Lindsay. I know you think otherwise. So thoughts on this Denver backfield?
My thoughts on the backfield is it is a hot mess right now. And cruddy for both of them. Even Devontae Booker is not going away. I mean, it is like a 3-headed commit. It's wild. So I don't know what their allegiance is to Booker other than draft capital. Like, he's not good. I don't know why Elway has such allegiance to his draft picks because he's proven time in and time again. And even Cecil Lammey talks about it on his pod for football guys. Like, you can see Vance Joseph's body language. He doesn't like Devontae Booker. Like, he doesn't even want him on the field. But it's like John Elway will not let him off the roster, and he's like forcing him to play him. And It's like even this week and the last week, both Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay each got about 40% and 35 to 40%. Devontae Booker is like close to that 30% range. It's wild. I don't know why he's on the field. It's like not equivalent to LeGarrette Blount, but it's like it gives me the same kind of like cringing feeling. Like I don't love Lindsay long term, but there's so much more ability with Royce Freeman and Philip Lindsay than there is with Devontae Booker. Why even go there? Why even put him on the field and hurt your team? Because your quarterback's struggling. You could really use the pressure off of him. And so I still love Royce Freeman. This is definitely a buy low for me. A couple guys that I've been targeting is Penny. Even now, he got 0 snaps. Don't give up on him. He's 5 games into his rookie year. Royce Freeman's the same thing. Like, go buy these guys. They're pedigreed. They're thick. Like, Royce Freeman is thick. That's what I love about Royce Freeman, his center of gravity. If you try to tackle him with an arm, you're not taking him down. So I still love Freeman. Philip Lindsay, if you hit him with an arm, he's going to fly across half the stadium. He is so thin. He's got to break in half eventually. And you know what? You're right. He's not getting 20 carries a game, and he doesn't need to be productive. But that's the problem, I think, is if you're going to go try to buy Lindsay right now, you're paying on his top end. Like, he's probably not going to see more than 12 carries. But guess what? He's seeing 12 carries. So he's seeing almost as big of a workload as he's going to get. That's the kind of time that you don't go buy that guy. It's too high now. You missed your window. If you wanted him, you could have gotten him off the waiver wire, and you didn't. So you missed out, and you just write it off as, I missed, and you move on. And then you go get a guy like Royce Freeman, and you put a poker chip down if you want a piece of that backfield.
Yeah, and he's the perfect satellite back, on a team that's clearly going to run the ball right now. And the most important thing here is, I can't stress this enough, when an organization falls in love with a player and they keep giving that player opportunity, listen, you might not like him, but if they're giving him shots, he's going to score points. And right now, Philip Lindsay is getting the opportunity. But something is very, very wrong with Royce Freeman right now. I don't know what's going on there. He does not look, I'm not impressed when I watch him. So I'm, again, I'm looking to get out. I know you're not, but I'm looking to get out of Freeman. And let's wrap it up with quarterbacks, talk about a couple of these guys before we end the show tonight. We talked about Drew Brees, number 1 scoring quarterback of week 5, put on a show Monday Night Football. Aaron Rodgers, gimpy knee and all. 400 yards, had 5 end zone throws, 2 of them converted for touchdowns, 32 of 52 for 442 yards and 3 touchdowns. Doing his thing. Tom Brady doing his thing. I'm
going to go back to Aaron Rodgers. Interesting. Dr. Chow, someone who I follow on Twitter, great follow. If you want injury updates, he can pretty much diagnose anything just from the video. Him and Dr. Gene Bramwell of Football Guys, both really good follows for some injury updates. But Dr. Chow will usually be a little more interactive on Twitter front. He tweeted today that he thinks this Aaron Rodgers knee is going to be behind him throughout this entire month of October now moving forward. And I think he's right. You see it, just his ability to kind of move around the pocket, manipulate, and start to extend a little bit of the plays. He looked more comfortable. And I think you're going to start seeing Aaron Rodgers, kind of bounce back to form here.
Oh, yeah. Watching that game, I was having a heart attack because they were up like 24-0 or 24-3. And here we are, third quarter, fourth quarter. He's driving them down the field, scoring touchdowns. And I'm just like, oh, my God.
Typical Aaron Rodgers fashion.
Yeah. I'm like, here we go again. They're going to lose this game, but they pulled it out. The Lions did. But Rodgers looked like he was, like he was fine. So, like we said, doing his thing. Rodgers, Brady, again, up there in the top 5 performances. Andrew Luck looked good. But, the number 7 quarterback for this week, Case Keenum. I get it. He scored a lot of fantasy points, 28 points here, but mostly garbage time. And he looked terrible. The stat line for Case Keenum, 35 of 51 for 377 yards and 2 touchdowns and a pick. And, I just don't know what they're doing in Denver. And I know Elway, we talked about him just before, about him being stubborn with his picks. And I guess he's going to be stubborn with his free agent signings too. But man, I would love to see Chad Kelly out there. I know you do too. Just to see what he could do. And, if they're going to continue to blow games, maybe we'll see him sooner than later. Thoughts on Case Keenum?
Yeah, it's rough to watch. I just never really saw it with Keenum. Even last year when he was, actually efficient for the Vikings, like I feel like everyone just all of a sudden forgot about what he did when he was with the Texans. It's like Nick Foles makes this run for 3 games and all of a sudden it's like people are clamoring for him to be the starter. And it just made no sense to me. It's like you totally forgot that Nick Foles was almost out of the league after he was cut from the Rams. So it's like you can't just have a recency bias towards these quarterbacks. And yes, Case did it for almost an entire season in Minnesota, but he had weapons. You don't get a receiving core like Diggs, Thielen, and Rudolph very often. And that's exactly what he had last year in Minnesota. And he had a running game that was pretty efficient with McKinnon and Murray carrying the load there. They were able to do 2 totally opposite things, and they were able to be efficient, move the sticks. And so he was able to be efficient and move the sticks. All of a sudden, you see him go to an offense like the Broncos, where you have 2 developing running backs and, an offensive line that's subpar and wide receivers who are aging. And all of a sudden, he looks like the old Case Keenum. Are we shocked? I mean, no. I just don't get it. And Chad Kelly's a better fit for the offense. I'd love to see him come out here, sling the ball around a little bit. I'm glad to see the transition to Courtland Sutton. Let Kelly and Sutton build a rapport together and just grow together. It's like Rosen and Kirk. Just put them on the field at the same time and let it blossom.
Yeah, please get him on the field. You mentioned Rosen. He didn't look good Sunday. Very, very disappointed in him. Blake Bortles looked horrible. Blake Bortles. What did he throw? 5 interceptions this week? 4 interceptions.
Blake will Blake. You can't be mad. Blake will Blake every now and then.
Blake will Blake, and he keeps ending up in the top 12 QB1 status every week. Yeah. Threw the ball 61 times. Get out of here, Blake Bortles.
Man, super flex leagues. I've been 3. I've got Bortles as my quarterback 2 in every league, and people are like offering me trades like, you need a second quarterback. I'm like, you obviously don't look at the stat lines because Blake Bortles is like a top 12 quarterback every single week. And
unfortunately, he is.
I love it because he's so undervalued in Superflex. You just hammer that spot and you're safe. All right, continue.
Yeah. That was it for quarterback. We could end it on a sour note with Blake Bortles. Speaking of disappointments, I've got replacing Anthony Barr this week is Mason Crosby. I mean, I know he's a kicker, but you got to say it when you're bad, you're bad. Mason Crosby missed 4 field goals and an extra point and helped my Lions get the win. So I was happy about that. But geez, Mason Crosby is supposed to be a top 5 kicker, but he's not.
This has got to be the worst era of kickers we have ever seen. I mean,
pretty bad.
The demise of Bailey, like this is Crosby all of a sudden, like not that he was ever the most accurate kicker, but like that was an awful, awful display. This is like one of my friends, Richard. He was a kicker in high school, and I don't think he watches the pod, so I'll just say he wasn't very good, but he knows the technical side of it. And he always says, like, he jokes around, he's like, I'm going to start raising my kid, from the time he's 2 to be a kicker. Who raises their kid to be a kicker? Nobody. So my kid's going to be a stud. And I'm like, I actually texted him. I was like, dude, can you please raise your kid to be a kicker? Because I can't watch this much longer. This is just god awful.
Yeah. It's been bad
awful
this year. But I mean, that's a kicker's life.
Missed extra points left and right. I'm actually glad they moved it back because it really does make the game more exciting.
It does.
It like adds value to the kicker where there was like before there was such a confidence like they would never miss one. Now they're thinking about it. They're in their own heads and it's great. I love it. It's actually kind of fun to watch.
It is fun to watch. All right. So that'll be it for the show. Let's end it on final thoughts. Any final thoughts for tonight?
No, just, keep grinding. I just ran through some of my leagues to the state of the league for myself and just, trying to determine a direction for myself. You're about halfway through the fantasy season now. You're coming into the bye weeks. You have a good feel for your team and where you stand. You got to take a stance. You got to have a clear direction. Don't be caught in the middle. decide, am I a contender or am I someone who's going to be rebuilding? And then look for the pieces that you can ship off. If you're a rebuilder, you want to get rid of some guys who you don't see having that 2 to 3 year window of good production. You want to sell those guys now before you're too late. Churn the roster over. Don't take dirt for them, but make sure you're throwing some offers out there, highball people, and then start to work yourself back down, and know your league too. Don't just look at your roster, find who the contenders are, see where their holes are, and try to construct a deal that makes sense for both of you. They're probably not going to trade you their best player. And you have to understand that in negotiations. You have to take the stance where you're willing to sell the high player for, a package deal. So let them consolidate, let them strengthen their lineup, and then take their back end draft assets, start to compile draft assets, because those things don't lose their value. They only gain as you go into the offseason. So my biggest advice at this point is almost about halfway through, find and take a stance on your teams in every league and send out some trade offers. You have to be active.
Yeah, it's true. I wonder if you read my notes there. That was actually going to be my final thought too. I'll just piggyback on it. And you've got to be realistic about your team. I know we're playing a game here and it's competitive and you want to compete week to week, but you've got to be realistic about your team. If you're not scoring points, you've got a problem. And in Dynasty, you've got to look ahead for next year and look around, look at your competition and seeing what's going on. Because if you're in a league and there's 2 or 3 teams out there that are outscoring you by a lot of points and you're just, maybe possibly squeaking in the playoffs right now. Listen, anything can happen. It's a marathon, but you got to be realistic. And most likely those teams are going to run away with it and could possibly leave you in the dust. So you don't want to fool yourself and you want to be realistic. But again, look around and look at who you're playing this game with and competing with.
Yeah. And on one more note, I never advocate, tanking ever in any form or fashion, because it really can, affect the integrity of the league. Because if there are teams actually trying to vie for the playoffs, giving them a free win isn't, in any circumstance, something that should ever happen in a league. You have to have respect for the league, for the commissioner. Don't make the job difficult. Make it easy on the commissioner. Just start your best players. Put a legit lineup together. With that being said, if you take a stance on your team, don't be afraid to blow it up and go through what I think it was either Ryan McDowell or Curtis Patrick coined as the productive struggle. Like, there's a difference between tanking and trading away your best players for draft assets, because you're allowed to blow it up. That's your prerogative. You don't have to keep Odell just because you have Odell. You can trade him off for some draft assets and go the productive struggle route, where you're still playing a lineup, your best lineup. It just may not be what some people consider, your starting legitimate starters. So if you trade some of those guys away to gain draft assets, that's fine, but don't just straight out tank. Make life easy for your commissioner and just have some respect for your league mates, because there's money involved and, people get irritated when you play with some money.
It's true. Commissioner, hopefully your commissioner has something in place for tanking. There's many ways to go about it. Maybe we could talk about it one night in the off season, but hopefully your commissioner has something in place to prevent tanking. But that'll be it for tonight and for this week's show. Just want to thank everybody out there for listening and for subscribing. If you're listening to this now and you're not a subscriber, please click that button. And if you can, pass it along to your friends and help us get some more subscribers for the show. And we will be pumping out some stuff for you guys every week for Dynasty. So for the Hot Pineapples, this is the Ewok Juggernauts. And that'll be it for tonight. Everybody one clap. Thanks.
Have a good night, guys. I stopped trading in the max.
You stopped?
I've stopped. I don't know. No one ever wants to trade with me anymore.
He sends me screenshots of trade offers that he gets. We have a whole collection. It's just incredible. This is gold. This is Dynasty gold right now. I mean, come on. Are you serious?
Does it shock you? He's trying to like just trade rate people constantly. I don't know how he comes up with half of them. I think he like adds the numbers together. He's like, oh, he scored 17 points this week. So I add his 17 to 3 and I get 20. So now I've got to make up 20 points. So, because he went off and scored 20 points between the two of them, I can go get Juju now because he only scored 11 this week. Like, I think that's like his thought process. Dude, I pulled off a trade and redraft, stacked my team. Carlos Hyde, who I also had Carlos Hyde for Aaron Rodgers. Boom.
Wow.
Just to shore up
that's
my
a
offense.
great trade. I love
stuck
that.
to my guns. And he came back. He's like, all right, I'll do the deal. He sent me the offer. I was like, smash accept.
I wanted to dump Kamara so bad.
Why?
I just don't. I can't stand Alvin Kamara. I just don't.
No, you like hate him.
Oh. Kerryon Johnson, Allen Robinson, 2 first-round picks. That's what I was trying to get for Alvin Kamara. That's highway robbery.
Dude, I'm going to be dominating this league for the next 3 years. It's great.
Man, I don't care what time it is. When the Browns, if they do, God hoping, they trade Carlos Hyde. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Wake me up.
This is the Chubb Club. Hard at work here.
Oh yeah.
What?
The wrong Josh Allen.
The wrong Josh.
Josh Allen, Kentucky University. Just wait till next year. That's
Yeah, right. I gotta go do some research, I guess.
That's the real Josh Allen.
One of my friends is like, it's just, no, never mind. I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to end up in outtakes.
I know exactly what you're gonna say. You can't, like, knowing about the outtakes now, you can't hold back on me.
I know.
Because you know I'm gonna squeeze it in there somehow.